last week we talked about how your choices or your thoughts become your choices. Your choices become your habits, and then your habits become your lifestyle, and your lifestyle becomes your legacy. So today I want to focus about your thoughts. I remember when I was in prison, I heard this one preacher once said, if you watch Bugs Bunny all day long, all you're going to do is say, "What's up, Doc?" So, it's really interesting that the things that we think, we really don't even think about the impact and the thought that they have in our hearts. So there was this verse out of the Bible that is really interesting because it just applies to any aspect without any religious connotation. It says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, to the things that happen in this world, what the world tells you you need to consume, but be transformed. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And for me, the renewal of my mind came when I began to focus on God instead of myself. And what were the thoughts I had before? I tell you, one of the things is that I used to really be into pornography, mainly because my life was a pornographic movie, and because I knew a lot of those stars. And then, so therefore, one thing led to the other, and that's all I used to think about. But all of a sudden, here I am in prison, laying in my cot, and all I had to read was the Bible. I read it as a historical book, and then I started reading it, the New Testament, as a book of morals. And the more I read, because again, it was the only book I had available to me, the more my mind began to change, and the more I began to be transforming what I thought. And it's really, really interesting in our life that we got to constantly check, because we are so addicted to consumption. Look at the anger in the world. Why do we have so much anger? Because we consume all this media that tells us, that wants us to be angry. Because statistics have proven that the angrier we get from the media we consume, the more we engage in the media and the more that we consume, right? You've never seen a video that makes you feel angry about a political party or a lifestyle or whatever it might be, that immediately you don't want to consume another one, because it'll lead you to another one. Before you know it, we're spending hours on social media, really putting nothing but junk into our minds and bringing anger into our hearts. And then it just reflects in our marriage, in the way we parent our children, in the workforce. And then we pick people like us that think the same way. So we never, ever stop to think about, how do we transform our mind so that we can think positive, so that we can have hope, so that we can feel that there is forgiveness for the wrong that we have done in our lives. And we begin to be transformed by hanging around the different people. I tell people all the time, how do you change? The first thing that changed was, for me, that was so critical, I moved. I moved out of Miami, the city that I love with all of my life, all of my heart. I moved out of there. Why? Because I knew that if I stayed there, I would be around the same type of person, the same friends that wanted me to continue to do what I did. And my lifestyle would continue to be the same. It would be no different. So I moved. I moved out of Miami. I moved to my ranch. And then later on, by God's grace, I went to prison for 5 years. What a gift. People might think, wow, how horrible. No, actually, it was the greatest gift God ever gave me. Because in prison, I began to transform and to renew my mind and to think differently. So that when I was released, I was a different person. So look at your life now. Look at yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself, do you like what you see? Or do you want to change in your life? So change is really up to you. Stop consuming the media that makes you angry. Start reading things that are positive. Learn. If you're not growing every day, you know what you're doing? You're dying. So renew your mind. Renew your mind. For me, it was by reading the Word of God. No more to pornography, but thinking about God and thinking about how merciful He was to me, and what a chance I had that I was alive. I didn't even know I was ever going to go home. I did. I didn't think I'd ever see my parents, I would be able to bury them. I did. But you know what? The main thing was that was no longer my focus. My focus was no longer on me and what made me feel good. The greed, the desire to have power, money, the desire to have any woman that I wanted. It was different now. And the difference was that I started thinking about those that were less fortunate than me. Why? Because that's the new material that I was consuming. I was renewing my mind every day. Believe me, we all need renewal. So I pray and I hope that you look at your life, and if you don't like what you see, make a decision today to change. And change begins with renewing your mind.